Greetings and thanks for watching the second lesson. Our first lesson, and shout out to Jake and everyone else who's watching. Our first lesson was about learning the notes on the fretboard, the natural notes. And by the way, I changed the PDF on that first lesson because I added a little graphic that shows all the natural notes for the fretboard. So you have a quick reference when you're looking at the handout. You can see the little reference that shows where every note is on the fretboard, all the natural notes. This lesson I want to talk about chords. I want to talk about open chords, and I want to talk about a little bit about bar chords too, and how they're movable, and the importance, and how they're formulated, how they're created, and you use them for different purposes. So it's a lot like when you learn bar chords, you can learn pieces of bar chords. So for example, Stairway to Heaven, right? It's basically variations of an A minor chord that comes from an A minor bar chord. So it sounds like this. So pieces of an A bar chord, other chords, but it starts out very much all based around a bar chord from A minor. Or you want to have something that's really full sounding, where you don't want to play a piece of it. You want to play open chords mixed with full bar chords. So like something that's traditional. Sometimes you want the entire chord, sometimes you want pieces. But if you're learning, open chords and also bar chords, you have that combination, and you'll learn much more about where notes are on the fretboard and stuff. But you gotta learn both. All right, so let's take a look at the handout and begin looking at the what we want to talk about. So we've got here some pictures of chords: A major, A minor, B major, B minor, etc. And just so you know, the blue lettering here references. Let's talk about these boxes first. So every chord, major chords have a root. So this is an A major. So the root is the note A. A third, which is the third note, A, B, C. Now, actually, this is a C sharp. We're gonna learn. You're gonna have to memorize this stuff in the beginning, but you'll learn more about why it's a sharp later on. And the fifth is the A, B, C, D, E, the E note. So that's why these fives here, these are all E's. These are all E notes. And the root, you should know where the root is, because these shapes, this shape that is helping to make this A chord is movable. But if you know where the root is, you know when you're moving it what the new chord is that you're playing. I'll show you in a minute. Now let's talk about majors and minors. So a minor is basically a flatted third. You see this 3 here has a little flat symbol on it. That's because we took the note C sharp and we flattened it 1/2 step or 1 fret to a C. Now what confuses people sometimes is they hear it's a flat 3, but they say, well, C's not a flat of anything. It's a natural note. Yeah, but it's flatted. It's a flat. Sometimes it's called flat. It's really flatted. It was a C sharp. Now it's a C. So that's why it's called a flat 3. So all minor chords have a flat 3. Because you're taking the 3 from the major and flatting it to make the minor sound, and you get a major sound, it's kind of happy, and you get a minor sound, a little bit more melancholy, right? And then of course you have the fifth again. You've got that stays the same. It's an E note. So all of the chords are structured like that. But the purpose of today's lesson is really to sort of emphasize that if I know where the root is, if I know this middle. This little sequence of 3 notes being pressed down, 3 strings being pressed down. If I know that the middle note, and these black notes are the fingering. So your index finger is 1, your middle finger is 2, your ring finger is 3, your pinky is 4. This could vary. This could be 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. It could be 3, 3, 3, 3. And you will need to learn that at some point, because you'll need to press all 3 strings down with 1 finger so you could slide it up and play the next chord, a B note. So a B chord in the 2nd fret. Now I know that middle one here, this root, this middle dot here is a B. And if I know that that middle one is always the root, then I know I'm playing a B. I'm playing a B note, so now I know I'm playing a B chord. It also, what helps you is, as we said in the first lesson, the very first string if you study the notes on the first string, that also tells you what chord you're playing. If you're on an A shape like this, they call it an A shape, although now I'm playing a B, but it comes from the original A. I know the A string, the second fret is a B, so I also know I'm playing a B chord here. So that's a root, and there's a root. See, there's two roots here. But it's nice to know, you should really learn the chord, the root, the third, and the fifth, because when you do some lead soloing later on, you're going to want to know where the root, the third, and the fifth are. It helps you with chord changes, hitting chord tones and sounding like you're playing something that goes along with the whole song. So similarly, the B minor, you take the A minor shape, you do the bar chord across the second fret, and instead of playing a B major, you flat the third, and you get a B minor. Now C is a bit different because C is not, it's movable somewhat for learning notes, but this shape you can't. If I move the C chord to the third fret, and I only press down and only plucked the strings that are pressed out my fingers, I'm playing a D chord. Because now I know this root here is now on the third fret, and this root's also moved up to a D, and I know I'm playing a D. But it's hard to get a D minor out of it. It's hard to get a C minor out of this. So I'm going to switch the bar chords. I'm going to go to an A shape. I'll go to the third fret, and because I know this string here is the root, this note right here is a fifth fret of the B string. That is a C note, so I know I'm playing a C minor. If I didn't flatten this, if I did 3 straight across here, I'd be playing a C major. But when I flatten that, I get that sort of melancholy C minor. So the A shape is movable, the A minor shape is movable to get to play different chords. And D, similarly. D has that little triangle shape, a little V shape, and the root is this dot right here. That's a D, and I can play a D. If I flatten the third here, I'm playing a D minor. And if I slide a D up to the fifth fret, I'm playing an E. Because I know this is the root. And if I move that to here, that's an E. That's the fifth fret on the B string. Similarly, I can take this this D minor and move it up 1, 2 frets, and I'm playing an E minor. Or I could be playing an F minor, or a G minor, or an A minor. So it's great because you can, now there's other ways, other shapes, a little more full. You can play these with 4 fingers, play a D minor with 4 fingers instead of 3 fingers, but just learn the basic chords for stars and realize that if you know where the root is, you can move them and you can play different notes with the same shape. And E works similarly. I could play an E, and I could flatten the third. Right here, I make a flat third. I lift my finger up off the G string, and I get an E minor. I move it up a fret to the first fret. I bar it with my first finger. Guess what? I've got an F. I lift up my middle finger. I flatten the third. I get an F minor. Now, G is, again, not very movable. But so if you want to, if I move that G up, the 3 strings that I'm pressing down could be different chords, but the open strings aren't being pressed and they're not part of the chord. I could pluck the 3 strings that I'm pressing down with my fingers, but I can't really strum the whole thing. So if I want to play a G major, I can play it here. I could play a G major with a bar chord. I could take this major, this E shape, move it up to the 3rd fret, and right now this is a minor. But if I play it with if I play the full 3 fingers like this, I'll get a G major. If I'm playing like an E, and I move it up to the 3rd fret, and I keep that E shape there, I move it up to the 3rd fret, I go from an E, whoops, everything's backwards on the cameras. I go to a G, I pick up my middle finger, I got a G minor. And that's what this G minor is here. So the main point of this lesson is to really sort of explain that you have these 3 shapes, the A shape and the A minor, the E shape, the E minor, and the D shape, the D minor, are movable. That's the beauty. It's the same shape. But as long as you know where the root is, you know what chord you're playing. The C and the G, if you study the whole cage system, which when you get a little bit more experience, you can spend some time on, It helps you understand where notes are on the fretboard also. It's just that the C and the G are pretty difficult to move as chords, as a full chord, but the A and the E and the D are very movable and very useful to know. Oh, so I want to clarify one more thing. What I said earlier, we were talking about the A, let's bring up that, we were talking about the A chord originally in the beginning of the video, and I said how, you know, the root and the third is, so if the root is A, it's A, B, C, and C is C sharp in this case, and you just have to memorize it, that there really isn't, you know, any other way to really do this. But you don't have to memorize, I want to be clear, you don't have to memorize it to play the chord, because if you know what the shape is, you just play the shape. You don't even have to know what the notes are, right? But if you want to learn the notes in the first 3 or 4 frets, as I said in the first video, you basically will learn that as you're playing the open chords, you know, the cowboy chords as they're called sometimes. I guess because cowboys didn't have electricity. I also think the open chords ring out better. Like there's a G, right? If you're singing, especially if you're outside, it rings better than a bar chord. It's a little more muted, the bar chords. Electric guitar is different, but on an acoustic guitar, the open chords ring out a little bit more loudly. So now you have two ways to be certain when you're moving a shape around, whether it's the A shape or the E shape, or the A minor shape or the E minor shape on a bar chord. Now you have 2 ways to find them. If you're playing a full bar chord on the E, I'll go back to the camera for a second. On the E string, the deep E string, as I said in the first video, you know, knowing that it's an F and a G and an A and a B and a C and a D, as you go up, that tells you if I'm playing an E chord and I move it up to the first fret, I'm playing, this is an F here. The note is F on the E string, so I know I'm playing an F. If I move it up to the 3rd fret, it's a G here. The 3rd fret's a G, so I know I'm playing a G chord. But now you also know that when we looked at the root and the 3rd and the 5th on the E chord, this on the E chord, this is the root right here, right where it says R. So that's E. If I move it up to the 3rd fret, it's going to be a G. It's going to be a G chord. Now you might say, well, you know, why do I need to know both? Well, you may not. Let me just finish the A. So that's for the E shape. But for the A shape, similarly, you know as I said earlier, you know this middle note that you press down is the A, is the root. And you also know as you move up the fretboard that the A string, the A, if I'm at the 5th fret, that's a D. So I know that this bar chord is a D. And I know it from 2 ways, right? I know it from the middle piece of the A shape here. And because I've slid up to the 5th fret, the A string is telling me that's a D. So they're both Ds, different octaves, but both Ds. Now you say, why do you really need to? Well, you need to know all the notes anyway, so it helps learning all the notes. But also, you may not be playing a full chord. So if you play part of a chord, like this is, I'll go back to the camera for a second. Like if you could play a full A chord like this, but suppose you're just playing a bar chord like this. You're playing part of the bar chord. So now you know this note here is an A also on the what is that, the D string on the 7th fret. So there's 2 ways, and plus when you're, as I said, later on when you maybe do some soloing, you know, it's nice to know the notes, and when the chord changes in a song, you don't just play the scale, but you try to hit chord tones. You try to hit tones that are in that chord when the chord changes. So this root and 3rd and 5th will help with that, and again, it helps you learn all the notes. So I just wanted to clarify all that when I said you have to memorize that it's a C sharp for an A. You really don't have to play the A. You just know the shape. But if you want to know the notes, you have to sort of study that. And in later lessons, we'll go through the circle of fifths in a little bit more detail about how these how the major minor chords are constructed with intervals and how it all works. You know, the logic of it. It is beautiful in terms of the logic. It's like the music and music theory is like a huge puzzle. Every piece fits regardless. It's like a 3D puzzle. Every way you look at it, everything seems to fit. There's never some inconsistency or there's nothing incongruent. Everything works. So that's all I wanted to say for today. So hope you enjoyed the lesson. If you liked it, give it a like. And I'm looking forward to putting together another couple of videos in the next few weeks to advance the class a little bit further. Have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.